The Division 2 is an online third-person shooter with RPG elements, developed by Massive Entertainment and released by Ubisoft on March 15, 2019. Since I did a review on first installment, I was looking forward to its sequel, and it has been on my play-to list for a long time. I finally got around to it, and considering its setting, it was an interesting playthrough during these times. In this review, I will be taking a look at Vanilla Game and its 3 DLCs. I didn't play Warlords of New York yet, but if people are interested, I can make a separate video about it. And now, without any further delays, let's begin. Division is set in a post-apocalyptic America ravaged by a deadly, highly contagious virus called the Dollar Flu. First game was set in New York. This time you're going to Washington DC after SHD network goes down and you receive a distress signal. Your main goal is to restore the network, find out what is going on in Washington, and bring some balance and peace into the city. But you're not gonna be playing this one for its story. What I think makes or breaks Division 2 is whether you like its gameplay loop. You shoot people, level up, get new gear, and do it again, until you get bored. This game isn't like Red Dead Redemption 2 or Dark Souls, where you get sucked into its world and want to know more about its story, world, characters, and have that feeling of just one more mission or one more checkpoint before you go to sleep at 5 AM. It's more like a side game that you play with your buddies or alone when you have nothing else to do and feel like shooting a few nameless grunts. And I think that the Division knows that as well and tries to turn that into its strength with its daily and weekly assignments, constant loot, and dozens of activities to keep you busy. I know that there are people that enjoy this type of game and can play it for hours, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just wanted to clarify how I felt before we dive into it. But no matter what type of player you are, unless you like its gameplay, then there is no reason to play it. So let's start with that. On surface, Division is a classic third-person cover-based shooter. Whenever you engage an enemy, you pop into cover, enemies do as well, and then you both peek and try to kill each other. You can try to flank them by either maneuvering around, using grenades, or with various skills at your disposal. Shooting itself is pretty good. It is not very realistic, but taking 15 shots to head isn't either. There are 6 weapon types: shotguns, LMGs, submachine guns, rifles, snipers, and assault rifles. And you can find a lot of different weapons in each category. Weapons have different stats, some have higher recoil and DPS, smaller magazines by higher damage, and so on. As far as I know, all weapons are from real life, so if you want to test out the weapon in-game before you go and buy it in real life, well, you can do that in Division. However, I was hoping for a few more weapon categories. I mean, assault rifle is always going to be an assault rifle, and just because it kicks a bit more doesn't mean you use it differently. Eventually, you will learn which combination is best for which situation, and there isn't much room for experimentation. LMGs and assault rifles for middle range, snipers and rifles for long range, and SMGs with shotguns for close range. I don't know, I was just hoping for something out of this classic combination to spice it up a little. And I know you get special weapons after level 30, but you can't really use them that much due to their limited ammo. Let's talk a little bit about gadgets. There are 8 different toys to use. You have turret and drone that shoot stuff for you, shield for protection, along with seeker mines that home onto enemies. Everyone's favorite combo in PvP modes. Next is hive, that shoots small stingers if enemy gets within its range. If you like to spy on people, then try out Pulse, since it shows their position on radar. Then there is also Chemical Launcher, a poor man's version of normal grenade launcher, and finally Firefly, that I barely used and didn't find it very useful. All these skills also have different variations. For example, turret can turn into flamethrower, drone can become temporary healing station, and so on. These skills bring a lot of variety into gameplay, and just like weapons, each one is good for different situation. For example, when I was playing solo, turret and drone was a great combo, since they were basically like 2 additional bodies that could draw enemies' fire away from me. In PvP, however, it is easier to use shields, because everyone rushes or tries to flank you, and without good protection, you're gonna die quickly. One more thing that makes combat fun is surprisingly enemies' AI. I mean, these boys and girls don't play around. If you stay in one cover for too long, they will flank you or throw a grenade to get you out in the open and shred you like a piece of paper. If you're fighting a group, which you are most of the time, they won't all shoot at you at once. So while you're busy taking care of one guy, another will try to kill you, and if you go after him, he will just duck. And then another one of his friends will try to turn you into Swiss cheese. If you shoot from cover for too long, snipers will blow your head off, and you can't forget about rushers. I got scared by those more than I did while watching most of modern horror movies. At starting levels, these tactics don't play a big role, since you're mainly fighting basic grunts, but once you get to endgame, encounters become challenging. Even though sometimes AI flops as well, especially when you surprise them, and they also get surprised by their own skill. A lot of times a guy was aiming his weapon right at me when I was reloading, and didn't do anything, but just stared and patiently waited until I reloaded and killed him. Unfortunately, even if game tries to force you out of your comfort zone and use various tactics, I still found camping behind one cover and picking enemies off to be easiest strategy, because outside of cover you are very vulnerable, and every flanking attempt is usually destroyed by enemies maneuvering around as well. This is probably because I played solo, so they had no one else to focus their fire on, that way they could see what I was doing. Still, like I said, AI is surprisingly good. However, combat is undermined by the fact that Division is not just a shooter, but also an RPG/MMO, which makes numbers more important than actual skill and strategy, but I'm gonna talk about that more in loot section of this review, so just stick with me. With gameplay out of the way, let's return back to story.
This is you. Welcome to DC.
In order to make Washington a somewhat safer place, you're gonna be working with two settlements, Theater and Campus, and complete missions for them, so they can function properly. Along that, you also get missions from White House and Division itself, where your main goal is to find out who and why damaged the SHD network and restore it. And while you're at it, you can also try to find the president. Eventually you attack strongholds of 3 main factions, defeat their leaders, and that is about it. Like I said, nothing special, don't expect any plot twists, interesting characters or story development. Main missions are there just to give you a loose narrative as to why you're there and to give you some goals that you can work towards too. I think that story was a lot worse than in original Division. I mean, even there it wasn't amazing, but at least you had the mystery as to why the virus was developed, who did it, Keener as Big Bad, and it was just more engaging. Here there is no big villain, no overarching plot, and you're basically just trying to make Washington a better place, which is admirable, but such a simple goal can't carry a story, unless you throw in some interesting characters, which Division 2 fails to do. Also, I really hate mute protagonist. Thanks to that, cutscenes are extremely weird and unnatural. I mean, like, these people are talking to you and all your character does is nod or shake hands or look fierce. I do hate this Ubisoft trend of making your characters mute. If they're doing this so that I can project myself onto my avatar, then it doesn't work, because I'm not mute in real life and I don't just stare at people. It could possibly work if everyone wasn't constantly asking me things and instead of getting a reply, they just ignore me, ignoring them, and move on. Like, it's so weird and I hate it. Anyway, plot is kinda improved with DLC missions that are implemented into vanilla game, and it feels like they were supposed to be there from the start, but were cut off so that Ubisoft could gain some brownie points for releasing free DLCs. I was also disappointed with factions. They are basically same as they were in first game, except they have different names. You have Hyenas, your classic street thugs aka Rikers, Outcasts, crazy fanatics devoted to their leader Emmeline Shaw that like to use flamethrowers, so basically cleaners, and True Sons, a military organization who are this game's last man battalion, and just like in first Division, their leader is the final boss fight. At least this time he doesn't fly in with the helicopter. I'm not really bothered by weak storyline because Division isn't about that. However, what I did mind was the weak level design. Every mission is same, with same layout, progression and enemies. It always switches between small hallways where someone tells a bit more about what you're doing, and bigger rooms that are set up for a shootout, and then one final big room with a boss fight. That's it. There are no surprises, no mix-ups, nothing. You just go from room to room, shoot, restock and do it again. Every time I went into a room, I knew if I was about to have a skirmish or just go through it without anything interesting happening, because their design and layout was predictable. Best they could do was make you defend something for a minute or two, or as a pinnacle of creativity, you sometimes get ambushed in a room you just cleaned up. What is worse is that starting missions are not even interesting as set pieces. You move from same looking office building to next and everything looks identical. Eventually it gets a bit better, set pieces start to be more interesting and sometimes you get to escort or protect someone important, but it is still nothing to write home about. Level design is what originally turned me away from Division 2. You see, when you start off you don't have all the fancy weapons, great equipment or tense firefights you see from everyone on YouTube. You start off with boring guns and barely any skills, and that's when story and level design is supposed to engage you and keep you hooked in. This game doesn't manage that at the beginning, and you have to pull through to get to interesting parts. And while combat itself is pretty good, if it isn't backed by good levels and reasons to engage in it, then it is all for nothing. And it's a real shame because the world design, its architecture and visuals are great. Even though I personally prefer snowy New York from first game, I have to admit that Washington looks amazing. If you have ever been there, I'm sure you're gonna feel right at home, and even if you're a filthy European like me, you're gonna recognize a lot of famous landmarks. White House, Lincoln's Memorial, Washington's Monument and a lot more. Combined with post-apocalyptic flavor, it creates a world that you want to see more of. Exploration is rewarding, you can find tons of collectibles, random skirmishes, or hidden places that will reward you with gear and experience. City feels alive, there is wildlife everywhere, and friendly NPCs roaming around. Ubisoft always knew how to create beautiful worlds, and Division is no exception. HUD is also part of visual experience, and I really like Division's version of it, since I always enjoyed ones that are part of game world, like for example Pip-Boys in Fallout. Animations are worth mentioning as well, they are very fluid and fun to look at, especially when you're jumping over obstacles, closing car doors or climbing buildings. World is also filled with activities. There is a lot more PvE content here than you could find in first installment. Control points are spots that you have to clear out first, then defend them and call allies to help you out, and so they can take over. Bounties that allow you to hunt dangerous criminals for some good loot. Side missions, which are basically like main missions, but shorter. No, seriously, I couldn't spot a difference between side and main mission most times, and I don't mean that in a good way. You can go look for SHD cages, finding them sometimes required a bit of thinking. Each settlement has their own projects for you to complete, which include donating gear, completing activities, and so on. There are also random small missions that pop out as you explore. Territory control, public executions, propaganda centers, and this will keep you busy if you have nothing better to do. I mean, they all lead to the same thing, which is combat, but it is nice to have some variation. And you know what has even more variation? Loot. Division 2 is a looter shooter at its core, so yeah, loot plays a pretty big part in it. By completing missions, activities and killing strong enemies, you can get your hand on some sweet gear. You start with white and green equipment, and by the time you reach endgame you will find high-end gear, and if you're lucky, you might even get an exotic. Other than weapons, you also find armor pieces. There are 6 slots that you can use, and they include backpacks, body armor or knee pads. Then you can also find the gear and weapon mods, along with some enhancements for your skills. Stronger enemies, harder missions and higher level mean better loot. Once you get better loot, you equip it, shoot more guys with it, and get new stuff. At the beginning you're gonna go through a lot of gear, and each new piece is better than last one, which feels rewarding. It's basically like an MMO, but instead of shooting magic, you shoot bullets. A lot of bullets. You see, each piece has its own statistics, and bigger numbers on your gear mean bigger damage, and you're gonna need all the firepower you can get. Enemies are bullet sponges, they can easily take a few headshots and dozen body shots. It gets worse as you level up, with enemies coated in armor, and in the end your skills with weapons and tactics don't matter that much. As long as you have strong weapons and good armor, you can steamroll through most of PvE content. On the other hand, even if you're a sniper legend with rust engraved in your memory, it doesn't matter if you barely do any damage. Now thankfully this numbers game wasn't a big problem. Usually I was able to keep my gear at level where combat was still a challenge, but not too hard, and unless I went into low level area, it never slipped into easy either. Bullet sponginess of enemies started to be annoying when I reached max level, and I had to empty full magazine into basic grunts. That was a bit ridiculous. As you gain more loot, you're gonna run out of space. So what can you do with the rest? Well, you can sell it at any vendor for credits that can be then used to buy better equipment, or you can dismantle it for materials that can then be used at crafting stations. Recipes are now gained by completing side quests, and by leveling up you also increase your workbench level. Honestly though, I never once crafted an item, because I never had recipes for better stuff that I currently had, and I also never had enough materials. But crafting is an option. I also heard some people complain about complicated menus and inventory management, but I personally never had any problems with it. Menus were clean, there was a clear distinction between different stats and effects each gear had. Map, inventory and collectibles are all separated into their own categories, and so I never had to look too long for anything that I wanted to check out. Outside of loot, you also get experience and level up for every activity. Each level up grants you a filled cage with equipment, increase in base HP, and some levels have special rewards, like apparel boxes, workbench upgrades, and so on. Town districts, main missions and weapons are gated by level requirements. Like I mentioned before, there are tons of different activities you can do to level up, and it took me around 20 hours to reach max level, which is 30. Once you get to that and finish final main story mission, it is time for Endgame. In order to talk about it, I will have to dive into small story spoilers, so if you care about it, then skip ahead, but honestly it is nothing big. I'm just putting this warning here so I don't get stoned in the comments. Alright, so right after you finish celebrating victory, Washington gets invaded by a new faction called Black Tusk, a private military organization equipped with high-tech toys and robots. They take over control points, strongholds and some main mission set pieces. and your goal is to push them out. Once they came in, city got a lot more chaotic, you can see other groups fighting each other, and a lot more patrols. There are also some new activities. For example, Black Tusk can now invade the settlement, which means you can't fast travel there, and you have to hack and defend an antenna to disable them. This invasion also serves as an introduction to world tires, and it gives you reason to progress through them. Before we dive into that, let's talk about changes that happen to your character after you reach level 30. Don't worry, he or she doesn't go through midlife crisis, you just get some new toys to play with. First, at level 30, you unlock specializations. These are basically classes with their own skill tree and special weapons. At start, you have 3 available, and you can unlock rest by completing field research. Here, you have different objectives, easy ones first, like donate certain amount of components to control point, but later you have to defeat special bosses in missions on higher difficulties and so on. Skill tree gives you access to new types of grenades, allows you to increase damage with specific weapon types, and thanks to specializations, you can, well, specialize your character. When it comes to new weapons, you can choose from crossbow, grenade launcher and sniper rifle, and later unlock minigun and a few others. Another huge change happens to your gear. Instead of levels, each piece now has gear score, and of course, better items have higher score. When you reach level 30 and start endgame, most of your gear will be around 250, and you can now go all the way up to 515. This is where world tires come in. You start at world tire 1, which is capped at 300 gear score. Then you move on to world tire 2, you can fight gear up to 350. Unlike in previous game, where you could change world tires whenever you wanted, here you have to defeat Black Tusk in order to do so. Each defeated stronghold gives you access to new world tire, and if you want to take on Stronghold, you first need to complete main missions associated with it. Personally, I like this system as a concept. It is a lot better than just switching tires whenever you want to, but unfortunately it is not that much fun in game, because you just basically have to once again complete same missions as you did during main story. And they are identical to the normal variants, they just come with different background. You fight in same rooms, in same order and style. So to spice things up, Massive simply increased the amount of enemies that attack you in each room. While I like Black Tusk as a faction, they are not smarter or tougher than usual grunts, so you just kill them wave after wave and wait until they stop spawning. Seriously, sometimes I spent 5 minutes in one room dwindling down their numbers until it was finally over. And once again, there are no changes in mission structure, they all play out as they did in main story. Since there are now 5 tires, you have to go through same 3 strongholds and 9 main missions, with 1 new stronghold at the end. If you just blast through this like I did, it will take you around 4 hours to finish. And let me tell you, outside of that final stronghold, I didn't have much fun. It got so boring that I played Need for Speed Heat instead, and I never play racing games. But I persevered, because I wanted to check out final main missions that I still haven't finished. Now, before DLCs you didn't have to do this invasion stuff, unless you wanted to level up your gear. But if you like me, start the game now, and don't read about it in advance. You can see that when Black Tusk arrive, you only have 27 out of 33 main missions completed. So naturally you expect story to continue after you're done with them. And yes, it actually does. DLC missions continue where main story left off, and they fill a lot of blanks about what happened to certain characters. When I played them, I didn't know they were part of new content, and I thought they were in original game as well, since their implementation was natural and they fit into narrative. Unfortunately, they're only available after you're done with the Black Tusk invasion, which is a shame because for me that was a real chore to play through. I just wish you could play them during invasion, or at least once not connected to it, because they are the best single player content I ever saw in Division franchise. There are 4 episodes available, one deals with President, next one is about fate of a faction leader, one is about Aaron Keener, and one takes you on an adventure to Pentagon. Coney Island and Pentagon come with their own small portions of map with safe house, vendor and 2 main quests. Zoo is a stronghold and Camp White Oak is a classic mission. First of all, each location looks absolutely beautiful. Mannington Zoo features different sections of park and you can see wildlife running around, slowly taking over this man-made structure. It also has a great final boss battle that's finally not just a bullet sponge. You actually have to do something else than shoot it in the head. Coney Island has amazing atmosphere. You're in a storm at night chasing Aaron Keener and Black Tusk Commander, all while going through various set pieces like horror house or amusement park. Pentagon features some of the most dangerous opponents, where a freaking helicopter tries to kill you while you get attacked by waves of strong enemies. Bosses also have a few unique tricks. One, for example, disables all your electronics, and you can only rely on your marksmanship to kill him. Seriously, these are amazing, and it is a real shame that they were not included in vanilla game, and that you have to go through boring invasion before you can play them. If a mission like Coney Island happened at the beginning of game, I would be instantly hooked. I'm not sure if developers just had more time or experience when crafting these, but hopefully they can take these types of missions and put them in the next game right from the start. If you tried out everything there is to single player, You can play missions with friends or random strangers, or if you think that game is too easy, you can replay them on higher difficulties for better rewards. That about covers single player PvE content, so let's move on to PvP, because what's the point of getting all that gear if you can ruin some poor guy's day with it? There are two game modes for that, Dark Zone and Conflict. Let's start with Dark Zone, which is technically a PvE/PvP area. Dark Zones are places without order, full of looters and chaos, where situation got out of hand quickly, usually due to some accident. Here you can find strongest AI enemies, who have a lot of good stuff on them, including exotic weaponry. The twist, however, is that you can also meet other agents. By default, everyone is friendly and can damage each other, but by pressing a button you can become rogue, hunt down other agents and take their contaminated loot. You see, you can't just use everything you find in Dark Zone immediately. Most of gear is contaminated and you have to extract it in order to use it. If you die by player or AI hands, it stays there, and you have limited time to get it back before someone else snatches it up. To extract it, you have to go to special zone marked on map and call a chopper. Everyone in the zone will be alarmed that someone called an extraction, so they can easily come and try to take your gear. With that, waves of enemies will attack you as well, so you have to be on lookout for both AI and humans. Once you finish an extraction, you get experience and find your gear in mailbox. Rogue players also get experience by killing other players, and longer survival means more experience. When you go rogue, other players can see you when you are in close proximity, and they get tons of XP for hunting you down. Thankfully, gear is normalized, which means that everyone has similar stats, and gear score you had in PvE world doesn't matter. So that way everyone has fair fighting chance, even against veterans. But honestly, most of time players were friendly, we helped each other in landmarks and extractions, and I rarely found any rogue agents. Maybe I was just lucky. Dark Zone is high risk, high reward, since you never know if that agent sprinting towards you is friendly or will try to put a bullet in your head when you turn around. But by going to Dark Zone, you can get your hand on some sweet loot, not available anywhere else. Dark Zone also comes with its own levels and perks. With newest update, you no longer gain Dark Zone experience by killing enemies. Only way to level up is by doing extractions and killing agents. I don't like this change. Now we are almost forced to hunt other agents or spam extractions over and over again. It also takes away a lot of fun from killing AI enemies. You see, people, including me, like seeing numbers go up. Hell, it's probably one of the main reasons to play Division. Now if I kill an enemy in Dark Zone and that increases my normal level instead of Dark Zone 1, I don't feel like shooting them anymore. If I wanted to level up, I would just do normal PvE activities. When I'm in Dark Zone, I want to gain this experience for everything I do, since I'm risking my neck by being here. It is not like this update made it harder to level up either. All you have to do is just do extractions once you get loot or complete projects. I also don't like how Dark Zone was split into 3 parts. The original felt like it was its own world, separated from outside, and it was fun to just get lost in it. This time Dark Zones are small, you can run from one end to next in few minutes, and they just didn't capture me as much as area from previous game. Also, there isn't that much to do. You can clean landmarks, but there are only few of those in each zone. Sometimes a supply drop will pop out, and that's about it. You're left to wander around and hope you stumble across an agent or group of AI enemies. I wish you could still take on contaminated areas, or they could have added some new activities. Overall, I think that Massive kinda dropped the ball here. They managed to enhance PvE world, but on the other hand made the Dark Zone empty. You can still get some good loot, but it gets boring quickly if you don't gain the right experience from killing enemies and have no interesting things to do. And finally we have Conflict. This is a brand new PvP only mode, where you can clench your thirst for killing noobs. There are 3 game variants that every veteran gamer should know. Team Elimination, where each player gets 1 life per round, and Last Team Standing wins. In Domination, you fight for control points. And finally Skirmish. Here you get certain amount of respawns, and first team to run out loses. Conflict also has its own ranking system that goes up to level 100. Unfortunately, it is not very popular. While it didn't take me long to find a game, I was usually paired with level 100s when I was just starting out. And I noticed this trend through my whole playing time. Only ones playing this are either total beginners or pros who sank a lot of hours into it. Another problem I faced was with gear normalization. From what I read online, everyone should be on same level as they are in Dark Zone, but I could see clear differences between players in game. I mean, just look at this. One player has more armor than other. I also used same weapon throughout my Conflict adventure, and I could shred some people in a matter of seconds, while others didn't even flinch at me emptying a magazine in their head. I'm not sure if it was caused by my internet or my bad shooting, but I think that gear definitely plays a big role in Conflict. And if that is true, then don't even bother playing it until you finish your build. If it doesn't and I'm just bad at it, then it can be a fun mode if you want to try out some PvP without ruining others' life in Dark Zone. There comes a time in Division when you reach maximum gear score, venture into conflict, dark zone or harder PvE missions, and you still suck. That is because you just have random pieces of gear on you, and that won't fly here. You need to optimize your build and min-max your gear to get the most out of it. Here is where recalibration comes in. You can dismantle high-end weapons and store their talents to put them on different guns and make your dream combination come true. Now you can go online and find best build possible, or try to make something by yourself. But either way, it's gonna take some time and grind to do so. Here is where I stopped playing. I just didn't feel like grinding and putting more effort into making my character even better. So yeah, I can't talk about grind and repeating same missions over and over again to get that special exotic that will cream my pants. But if you're into that, well, oh boy, you can do that in Division. You can grind and make your character awesome and then destroy some poor schmucks with it. I mean, if you just play the game for a few hours a week, you're eventually going to get to that point either way. But you know, if you sink more time in it, you will get your reward faster. And that will lead you to final point of Division, complaining about each balance update and developers on Reddit. Just kidding, you can go and play Raid. I tried it out even without all the fancy gear and it was fun. I just didn't get very far because my internet connection kept failing me. Anyway, seems like fun with friends, not that much alone. Also, one final argument I want to talk about that I'm definitely going to see in comments. You just suck. I played this with friends and we have so much fun. Why are you so critical about it? Well, everything is more fun with friends. I could play any game I despise with friends and it would be fun. Hell, I can wait for Bus in Rain for 10 hours and it is still fun with friends. Using this argument just seems very desperate to me. I mean, yeah, some games are better with friends, some are even designed like it, but I think that just makes developers look incompetent. In my opinion, all games should be fun alone or with randoms as well, as long as they have good design and gameplay. I played Battlefield 4, a game famous for being fun with friends for 100 hours solo, and I had fun, because it is a good game. Now thankfully Division 2 is that type of game too, I enjoyed it a lot, and I never felt like I was missing out on any content by playing alone. In the end, the Division 2 is definitely not for everyone. It has very good progression system, where every action gives you loot and experience that keeps player engaged, and you want to continue growing. Unfortunately, story and level design of main and side quests is bad, and while its combat gameplay is solid, it can't carry this game on its own. So you ultimately end up doing same thing over and over again, and even though there are tons of activities for you to do, they all boil down to same thing, picking out of cover and picking off enemies as they pop their heads. This is fun for a few hours at a time, but can get boring quickly, and I never found myself playing Division for more than 2 or 3 hours straight. I still think that it is a better game than its predecessor, because as long as you don't mind doing same things over and over again, game offers you a lot of stuff to do, and it shows significant improvements in endgame content that was lacking before. It has new PvP mode, great DLC missions that should become norm for all of them, and you can easily sink hundreds of hours into it. It all boils down to whether or not you like this type of game. If you play games for story, characters and evolving gameplay, then try something else. But if you like MMO styled shooters with good progression, great gear, good production values and functional combat, then Division 2 is perfect. Besides, there aren't many looters out there, outside of Destiny, Warframe and Borderlands. I admit that this game is probably not for me, but I still enjoyed my time with it. Division 2 accomplishes what it aims to do, and that is creating a good looter shooter with great production values and stream of content that will make you come back for more, and if you're looking for something new in this genre, then Division 2 is a good choice. And yeah guys, I guess that's about it. So this is definitely my longest scripted video I ever did. The script had 8 pages, and I remember that my previous longest video on Chernobyl had like 5, I think. So yeah, this video is very long, so if you watched it in its entirety, I'm very grateful and I thank you for that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and I also hope that you're all staying safe during these times. When it comes to me, I'm doing fine. By the time you're watching this video, I will already have exams around the corner, so there will once again be a slowdown in video making. Anyway, I made a community post about all the future videos I'm planning to do, so you can check that one out. And if you're looking forward to any new Fallout content, well, there is a small chance I'm gonna do a top 10 for, you know, half the year like I usually do, but I can't promise anything. And if that one doesn't work out, I'm still planning to do at least one special Fallout video for its 10th anniversary, so yeah, you can look forward to that. And yeah guys, I guess that's about it, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, tell me what you think about it in the comments, subscribe for more Fallout and other games content, and I will see you next time.